Good morning. Welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media for HAR, and I'm joined this morning by a very familiar face to many of you, our Director of MLS, Shawn Dauphine. Welcome, Shawn.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you for returning to our program. We're really happy to have you and hear about some new features that are coming to our MLS. And some updates to different various topics that we hear from time to time from our members. Just in case for anybody who doesn't quite know who you are yet, maybe some of our newer members, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for HAR?
You bet. So as the title says there, I'm the Director of MLS here at HAR. Primarily responsible for overseeing the MLS operations with our MLS standard subscriptions, and also manage the relationships with our key vendors, being Supra and CoreLogic, who provide Matrix and Realist. Also work with a number of other third-party vendors whom we integrate with.
Okay, very good. You make it sound so simple, but there are a lot of third-party vendors that we work with that you maintain those relationships. We're going to talk about one today, Remine. What are some other ones, Shawn? I know there's Cloud CMA. Are there others you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the transaction management systems that we're integrating with as well. So you've got Zip Forms and the Lone Wolf transaction desk platform, as well as .loop. Work a little bit with the Inman Select subscription that's available to all of our subscribers as well. I encourage everybody to take advantage of that free subscription that's included with your MLS.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, there's a lot of moving parts. It's a team effort. I've got a team that really assists with what I do, and we work closely with many other HAR departments.
Absolutely. Very good. A lot of people telling you good morning this morning. Kimberly Harding said, hello, Shawn, from the Hardings. So very good. So let's get into it. One of the big announcements that we had recently is the retirement, if you will, of the active key. And we've had a lot of members, making their upgrades. So what is the status of that retirement? And how do agents schedule an appointment to upgrade?
Yeah, it's going really well. Most of the people that are listening to this session today probably aren't going to be affected. We already have over 35,000 agents that are already using the eKey app. Mm-hmm. And so we are trying to get, the remaining active key users to go ahead and upgrade before the active key stops working. Active key was built on 2G technology, and all of the cell carriers right now are really moving to 5G and even 6G, and they've already announced that they're going to be discontinuing support for 2G. So we know the active key is just going to stop working at some point. So we're trying to get out in front of that, right? And so Supra's agreed to help facilitate online appointments for us through August 6th. Super easy for agents to make that appointment if they go to www.har.com/Supra. There's all the information on the appointments. They can make an appointment right there. Supra will call them within a 1-hour window of their appointment. It takes about 15 minutes, and they do this over the phone. And they don't even have to send their active key back. Just dispose of it as you would any other electronic device. So it's really easy, really simple. I know I've heard some concerns from some agents that have the active key that they were concerned that you needed cell service, at the door to open the box. That's not the case. Once your app is updated, you can open a box, without cell service. So there's no worries there. And it's been working well. I think the people that use the eKey really like it. So if you haven't updated to the eKey yet, you're still using the active key, I encourage you, please go make an appointment, because August 6th is the last Supra appointment that they're scheduling, and if you wait till the end, all those appointments could be filled up. So we really want to encourage it. If you know anybody that's still using the active key, try to encourage them to go ahead and make that appointment as well.
Are you hearing generally good feedback from people who are making the switch?
Yeah, I think there's some hesitancy because people are, concerned that they're so used to the active key, they know how to use it, and it works. But so does the eKey, and the fact that you don't have to carry two devices, I think, is a real positive I've heard from the eKey users, because most of the time people have their phone with them, right? Mm-hmm. So, as long as you get the app updated before you go out to show, or even if you're out in the field, you can still get your app updated. You would have to have cell service, obviously, for that. But no, it's been good feedback, and it works just as easily as the active key. The other thing is it's actually less expensive, and it's paid monthly. The active key is paid annually in advance, and so now with the eKey, it'll be on a monthly payment plan, and it's about $12.50 a month for the eKey.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much for that update. And again, hr.com/Supra is where you can make that appointment. So one of the vendors that we already mentioned this morning, Remind, there are some new features coming to Remind. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so Remind has been available for the last 2 years to all members with the starter plan. So we had feedback from many agents that the starter plan was a little bit limited, and agents have the option to upgrade to Remind Pro all along that time. And many agents took advantage of that. We're paying a monthly fee for the Remind Pro product. So, based on the feedback of our members, and we know some other MLSs in Texas have also made Pro available to all of their members. We did the same thing, and we're able to negotiate a nice agreement with Remind to include the Remind Pro version to all of our members, and that is going to be announced later this week. It's available today for all members to start taking advantage of. And you just put up here some of the differences between the starter plan and the pro plan. And the two I'd like to point out are really the carts. So going from 500 to up to 10,000 records that you can store in a cart. And also the contact info, which on the starter plan, you're going to pay $3 per household for that contact information. And now it's unlimited. And for those that aren't familiar with Remind, Remind is basically, some may use it as an alternative MLS search. It has tax data, it has MLS data, but it also brings in third-party public records data related to people, such as contact information and social media information. And so what I've heard from agents is that it's a really good farming tool, prospecting tool to generate new business. And so that you might have a form and you might want to filter it to only absentee owners who have owned the home for more than 5 years. And so you're really able to filter out your list and get those down to a very targeted form area. And when you add that form to the cart, that's your number of listings that you can then send out mailers or flyers or anything else out to that set of listings in that cart. So going from 500 in your farm to 10,000 is a pretty significant increase.
That's major. Yes. I'm interested to hear in the comments from members that use Remind and how it helps you in your business. I had the opportunity to sit in on a training session last week for some staff, and it really looks nice that some of the new features that are going to be available. I'm pretty familiar with Remind since we got it implemented a few years ago, but some of the new features that are available. One of the things that I like most about it is the cell score that it gives, kind of based on the information it knows about that property or about the homeowner. It gives you kind of their likelihood if they would be interested in selling. And with our tight inventory, that's a great feature to take a look at. They might not really necessarily want to sell, but it gives you an idea of where you can focus your farming.
Well, I think you made a good point too. I want to add on to there that, a lot of this public records data, it has to have realistic expectations set around it, right? So I checked myself and pulled up the contact information, and 3 of the 4 emails were right. Some I'd already forgot I'd ever had, but one of them was an email that I had never had, right? So, some of this information is a little bit of guesswork and trying to tie some big data sets into it. So, as you mentioned, the sales score is an algorithm that they put together to try to determine the likelihood of that seller actually selling within the coming 12 months. So there's a lot of interesting information they tie in. It's if you're a map junkie like I am, you'll really enjoy just the various mapping layers, and they do have some floodplain mapping layers as well that members can get in there and play with. And I'd encourage you can go today. If you log into the member-only portal, there's a search bar. You just type the word Remind in. There'll be a choice for Remind that you can click on, and we've made it real easy. We've established single sign-on, so you don't have to remember 2 usernames and passwords. You'll just click and go straight into Remind without logging in. And if members want to go to support.remind.com, that's also a great resource. They've got a lot of quick start videos, how to get started, and as well as webinars and training videos.
Excellent. We had a comment come in, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly. Tiamu said, "I love Remind. It helps find information about the property, and it really drills down the info." So excellent. Our members, and another member said, So the pro version will be included in our membership free. And
right.
as you said, yes, that's exactly right. So very good. Thank you for that. I want to back up a little bit. We had a few questions come in about Supra. Actually, Andrea said, just a comment, she said, I've only ever used the app. So hopefully she's been experiencing great service with that. Robert said, what is the coverage area for Supras?
So it's unlimited. It's wherever a box from our market exists, right? So it doesn't look at geographic area really. So I mean, now our Supras will not work with an Austin box unless you're a subscriber of Austin's MLS, and then you can get your app to co-op with those boxes as well. So our e-keys, they work with the boxes in our market. Okay, that box might be located as far as it could be located anywhere, but it has to be part of our system.
Okay, very good. And I see our MLS project manager Nathan Goebel is in the comments answering questions too, so we appreciate that, Nathan. If you do have other questions for Shawn, please type them in and we'll be sure to get to those questions. Are any other information you wanted to share about Remind before we move into a very, I think, exciting topic, because it's some common questions we get from members?
Nothing really on Remind. Just get in, use us, give us the feedback if you have it. As you get into that system, so we can help refine it and make it better.
All right, excellent. So I wanted to talk about, we tend to see there's some questions that we regularly get from our members, and for any of you that are a part of the Platinum HAR MLS Platinum Facebook group, you see these questions come up from time to time. Why don't we have this, or why don't we have that? And two of the things that I see the most and have seen just in the last couple of weeks is, one is about a flood field. And the other is about making a required seller's disclosure. So what prevents us from making a seller's disclosure required? And can we add a flood field to Matrix so that members can search for flooded or not flooded, or search by flood zone?
So I'll talk about the flooded field to start. So,
okay.
I mean, obviously, Houston was basically developed on a swamp, and so flooding is a big issue here, right? So the MLS Advisory Group has looked at this several times since Harvey, as recently as this year. And you may all remember that during the aftermath of Harvey, when we were in a natural disaster crisis, we did enact a temporary field. This was always meant to be temporary, and it was flooded, yes, no. In hindsight, we probably should have named it dry property, yes, no, because nobody said yes, it flooded. Only people said no, it didn't. And the idea behind the field at the time was really to help identify dry properties, because a third of our inventory had some sort of water damage. And so really it was an effort to really try to help make the market move a little bit, because it did seize up in the following days from the hurricane. So really this was always meant to be a temporary field, never meant to replace the seller's disclosure. And I know our attorney expressed a lot of concern at the time, but we got him somewhat comfortable with the fact that it would be temporary and that it would not be there forever. So again, the seller's disclosure is really where that information should be, and not putting that liability on the listing agent. And since Hurricane Harvey, Texas Realtors have updated the seller disclosure form to the whole, as everybody knows, a full page of flooding information, right? And so again, we're trying to put that information in the seller's disclosure, put that liability on the seller where it's supposed to be, and not on the listing agent. And it's really, not as simple as a yes/no field. I mean, when a property is flooded, it can be nuanced, right? Was there, a little bit of water over the threshold in the back door because the backyard drainage was not, was not very good, or was it 10 foot of water for 2 weeks, right? Both of them would have to answer yes on flooded. So, we really want, again, to leave that an opportunity for the seller to explain that in the seller's disclosure field. So, if we're putting all this credibility on the seller's disclosure field, then why can't we make it required, right? So we did look at that at the MLS Advisory Group. Okay, let's make it required then. Well, a lot of great debate, and I have to give kudos to the MLS Advisory Group. I mean, this is a group of professionals that meet monthly, and top producers, mid producers, managers, broker owners. We've got appraisers. We've got a very diverse group, and they give a lot of thoughtful input. And they get to see the perspectives of each other, so they are well informed when they make these decisions. But ultimately, I think that the primary reason for not making seller's disclosure required is it's not required of the seller until a contract is actually presented. Right now, we want them to do it ahead of time because most buyers want to see that information. We encourage listing agents to upload the seller's disclosure, and we make it really easy for them to upload that disclosure inside of Matrix. But it's very difficult to require that information when the seller is not obligated to provide it at the time of the listing. Sometimes it's difficult for the seller to get for the listing agent to get their seller to follow through on that information. It could hold up the ability to market and add that listing to the system. So that's the reason why we don't have a flooded field, and the reason we haven't required seller's disclosures.
Okay. I mean, all of that makes sense, and hopefully that sheds some light for our members, because again, those are common questions that we get. So if you hear agents asking about it around your office or anything like that, now you can share the answer with them so that they are better informed, and we do appreciate you answering those questions for us, Shawn.
I mean, and if the yes/no field, I mean, you could have a property that maybe it had a little bit of water and then the drainage was rectified, and it's a perfect house for your buyer. But because they had to say yes on it, you would have missed that listing. And your buyer comes at you later and says, "Hey, why didn't you show me this home? It was perfect." Well, you didn't want to see any flooded homes. Well, it only had an inch of water, not even that. It just barely came through the threshold. So.
Right. Or you and I heard the example last week of water just got in the garage.
Right.
And that was it. So, it makes a lot of sense. Great. So, on that same note, because there are so many suggestions or feedback that come into you about Matrix, and our, as you said, our MLS advisory group, they work really hard to address every little suggestion that comes in. I shouldn't say little, no matter how big or small that suggestion may be. So what is the best way? How can members submit feedback or suggestions for Matrix?
The best way is the top menu of Matrix. There's a button for feedback, and so I would just click that. It comes right to us, and all of those requests are vetted through the advisory group. If you're not in front of your computer and you want to send an email, mlsqa@har.com is another way to send that feedback as well. And I would say, be as specific as possible. Saying, make the stats better, or I don't like the color scheme, is not very helpful. So give us some specifics and an actual recommendation of what you would like to see brought to the group.
Okay. Very good. Backing up to Remind really quick, we forgot to mention this. Several people are asking about Remind training classes, or where they can maybe take a webinar. So if you want to go ahead and share that information with them.
I would say the support.remind.com, that has recorded webinars, and they hold a webinar pretty much every week. I will say we have some member-specific webinars that were going to be held the last week of July and the first week of August. And so you'll see an announcement later. This is the first time we're really announcing the Remind Pro upgrade. So I think on Thursday an email will go out to all members with more information, and also the member-specific training webinars that are going to be held the last week of July and the first week of August. So we'll also put those up on the Matrix sign-on screen, so you'll have an opportunity to register for those webinars.
Okay, so you heard it here first. Remind Pro is available for all members. Excellent. So going back to the feedback and suggestions for Matrix, once you receive that feedback and those suggestions, how are those changes implemented?
Well, we get a list of these and we bring them to the advisory group, and they again will debate and deliberate the various requests, and the ones that are voted up will move to the HRIS Board of Directors for final approval. And once approved by the HRIS Board of Directors, then we'll have to schedule, allocate those resources, and then get those implemented into the system. So the advisory group, they hear all the member feedback, and then there's items that staff bring from time to time based on our research, and sometimes feedback from members that we get as we enforce the rules.
Okay, excellent. Thank you again and again. That button feedback is in the top right-hand corner of Matrix. So another common question that I see is how to report MLS violations. So what's the easiest and most effective way to report MLS violations when you see them?
The easiest way is from the listing detail page in Matrix. There is a little yellow exclamation sign, looks like a yield sign, and when you click on that, it'll have a selection of the various violations that you would be reporting, and that goes straight into our quality assurance system that sends out correction notices. And I've got to give a shout out to our quality assurance team. They do a great job of answering calls from members, helping them with Matrix, helping them with the MLS rules, and we send out hundreds of correction notices every day, and many of those are generated by the system that automatically detects these violations that you're correcting, and many are reported by agents through the system, like I just discussed. So, we're here to try to make it fair for all users of the system and try to enforce the rules as evenly as possible.
Okay. If we could go back really quick to the flood topic, Shawn, Angie she just said flood zones are already in Matrix, so can it also be a searchable data point? I mean, that was kind of what we were answering, but if you could just kind of repeat the reasoning for that.
Well, we did discuss that at the advisory group level. Right now, Matrix really does not have the functionality to tie those layers in with the search. We could look at doing that. The one caution they gave, and the reason we really haven't, is again, missing properties that your client may want to see. So suppose you are excluding the 100-year floodplain, and somebody built a house that is well above the 500-year floodplain, though it's located in the 100-year floodplain. So a perfect property for your clients potentially out of the floodplain in terms of its elevation, but still physically inside of those boundaries, you would miss that property. And so that's one reason we have not done it in Matrix. That, and there would be some development work to make that happen. Now, I will say with Remind Pro, if you go in and play, there are a little more search capabilities in terms of those flood maps. So I think what you're looking for, you may find. Again, some of I want to leave that with a caveat that these floodplain maps are updated from time to time, and there could be some delays from the time FEMA updates it and the time Remind updates it. So any research you're doing, just double confirm that with another source, perhaps, because it does make agents' jobs a little more difficult in Houston with all of the flooding conditions.
Sure.
I realize that, but it also makes your job more valuable to your clients, and that's one of the reasons they need you here in Houston is to help them through that process, because it's not easy. Yeah. And there's no silver bullet for hitting a yes/no fill or even a floodplain map search. It's probably more useful, and so again, I would check out Remind for that, and now that it's in Remind, that might be something we look further at in Matrix as well.
Okay. Lynn asked, how often are those floodplain maps updated from FEMA?
It just depends. They don't update the whole map, so they're in the process, I think, of redrawing all of the floodplain maps, but they're not available. So you might get one panel at a time. So it just varies. It's not consistent on how often they're updated.
Okay. Very good. So moving along here. Actually, no, I wanted to go back. I'm sorry. I missed a question from Judy. Judy St. Julian said, there seems to be an issue with agents providing the MUD notice with their listings, which should be presented to the buyer before signing the contract. Can this be regulated? So this came in when we were talking about regulating or requiring a seller's disclosure or not.
Yeah, I'm going to save that for an announcement later in this session regarding the MUD notices that I think, Judy, you'll be happy with. So.
Very good. Sounds great. So now Showing Smart. Well, a lot of our members have been asking about Showing Smart. I know this is something that you are working alongside. You're not really managing that specific project, but you've been very, very helpful to the creation of Showing Smart. So can you share with us what the status of HAR's new showing service, Showing Smart, is?
Yeah, you bet. So the product is currently in the alpha testing stage with a limited number of users and a limited number of listings. So, our technology department here at HAR has created this product in-house. They've done a fabulous job. They've been working closely with the agents in that alpha group to develop the product and make it better. And it's really been a team effort across all levels of the HAR staff. from the top to our call center, and so, the product features both an online appointment component where you go in and you make that appointment online in Matrix like you're used to doing. We also have a call center component to help facilitate phone calls for agents that are out in the field. So we have over 200 listings right now that are being serviced in the Alpha program through Showing Smart. And so if you're a buyer's agent and you're making an appointment on one of those 200 listings, you will be engaging with the Showing Smart program to make that appointment, whether it's online through Matrix or whether it's via phone call to our call center. So we're hoping that by the end of August we should be ready for our beta period, and that would be opened up to every member. All right, so all members would have access to it during the beta period. At no charge. So there's not going to be any charge for beta. We plan to run the beta through the end of the year. We're going to try to be assessing our costs during that beta time to try to determine, what costs we're going to be, or what the system was going to cost for members going forward.
Sure.
And so, the less we use our call center resources, the lower we'll be able to price it. So we're just trying to gauge, how many of these are going to be appointments that are done online through the software that don't require humans versus how many appointments are being made via our call center, which will increase costs. So, whatever the cost, it will be competitive with any other showing service that you might be using. And again, through the end of the year, it will be in beta at no charge.
That's wonderful. And we are still in the alpha phase, but members can email info@showingsmart.com if they're interested in joining as an alpha tester. We do need testers. We have some new features that they're adding before it moves to beta. So email us if you'd like to take a part of that. Rhonda said she had to use it on a showing and it worked perfectly. Diane says, I'm in the alpha testing and I love Showing Smart. And others are saying they're looking forward to Showing Smart. Rhonda asked a question, will Showing Smart have reporting capabilities? So be able to create reports within Showing Smart.
Yeah, the answer is yes. I will say on the alpha, if you want to sign up, if you have a listing, then you can sign up for alpha. If you don't have a listing, then it won't, it really doesn't qualify for the alpha program. So if you sign up for alpha, you have a listing, there is a small training webinar that you're required to attend before you get into that alpha, and we're doing those every week. It's about a 30-minute little webinar just to get you acquainted with the system and get started. So in terms of the reporting, yes, we built out some reports in terms of, how many showings for homes priced in this price range and the zip code, so that you can kind of compare showing activity of your listing compared to an aggregate of listings in a particular area. So you can't see the specific showings on another person's listings, but you can get an idea of what's showing activity in a particular market. Taki, who's our Chief Technology Officer and heading this project up, they are also building a seller's portal and a buyer's portal so that you can kind of share that information with your seller or your buyer in terms of either the showing tour or the showings and the feedback for the seller.
Excellent. Thank you for that update, Shawn. So let's get back to Matrix. What other updates are coming to Matrix in the near future?
Well, I've got to say thanks to Nathan Goebel. He's our MLS project manager, and we talked about how these changes were approved, but Nathan is the man that actually makes them happen. So he's the one that makes sure that these are inside of the matrix and they're developed as expected. And so, one of the new items, I'm going to talk about two things that he just implemented in the last 2 weeks, and one is the new ETJ map layer that our member was just talking about earlier. And so with that new layer, when you add a listing now, it will auto-populate and tell you whether it's in the city limits, whether it's in an ETJ, or it's outside of the ETJ. So the listing agent will know based on the property's location. Again, if the property is not mapped properly, if it's mapped in the wrong location, if it's a new address perhaps, that will not be accurate. So again, all of this information, we want you to use an additional source as well to verify it, but it is auto-populating, and it'll give that listing agent a good idea of, on the Form 400, is it A, B, or C? Is it in the city? Is it in an ETJ, or is it outside of the ETJ? So thanks to Nathan for getting that done. I know our members really appreciate that.
If you could really quick, Lisa just said ETJ, question mark, if you could identify that for us.
Yeah, so it's the extraterritorial jurisdiction map, okay? And so you can go into Matrix now, on the map and turn that layer on, so you can look at the map and see all of the different ETJ boundaries. Or when you, like I said, when you add the listing, it will auto-populate where it's located. And to the comment earlier, every listing, when you add it, the listing agent is required to provide that form, and it tells where that property is located.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Other changes that are coming?
So I was going to mention also, he just recently updated the 2021-2022 school boundaries. And so, if you're searching for listings in a specific school boundary for the next year, they're already in place, and all new listings that are added to the system will get the new boundaries. All existing listings will get updated in the coming months. And as far as I know, we're the only MLS in the country that maintains its own school boundary data, and the only MLS in the country that actually auto-fills the school names on listings. And Nathan and his team have been monitoring and researching over 300 districts every year throughout Texas. That represents over 2,200 schools, about 30% of Texas. And we actually have a project right now to try to expand those boundaries throughout the state. So great job for him and his team on
just a small little undertaking for him and his team, right?
Yeah. The other thing he's adding soon is a school district shapefile as well, so that will auto-populate school district and an additional school layer for middle schools for like Conroe and Pearland, where they have 2 middle schools. So today we have elementary, middle, and high. And some of those have 2 middle schools, and they're not being accommodated. So with this new school layer, we'll be able to accommodate, up to 4 schools. So that's exciting. We're also looking at some new Matrix changes in the 4th quarter in terms of just some new search options. We have these are a lot of member feedback that the advisory group has looked at and approved. And one would be an estimated active date on coming soon listings. So the buyer's agent knows when that listing is expected to go active. Also, some new bathroom descriptions and a new choice for home office in the room description. So there's several more that I'm not going to cover all of those. You'll see those on the Matrix pop-up screen, and they'll be available to you here in the 4th quarter. We also, just 2 other little items here. I guess we are working on a Spanish translation of Matrix that will translate the entire system. So those that speak Spanish or have clients that speak Spanish will be able to use that side of the system to interact with Matrix and their clients. And we're also looking at creating a global information exchange. And so right now, international properties are grouped in with all of our listings and really separated by using Area 82. And it's a little bit messy. So one of the things we're looking at doing is breaking out those international listings, putting them into their own property class, and actually creating an information exchange that members and even non-members could join potentially and list their international properties. Right now, because they're inside the MLS, all international listings, just like every listing in the MLS, is supposed to have an exclusive right to list agreement in place before you put that in. And what we're finding is a lot of our international agents, they have co-marketing agreements, not really an exclusive right to sell. And so, breaking this out into its own information exchange will allow them to not only use an exclusive right to sell, but also these marketing agreements will qualify to get it into the system. So that's something we're working with Lori Carper and the Global Advisory Group on.
Excellent, thank you. So you guys are very busy, as you said. One quick question here from Rhonda. Any updates on photo editing? So I would imagine these are the photos that they're uploading into Matrix for their listings.
CoreLogic is making some enhancements to the core system, right? So, the 2 pieces that they're really focused on are the search and the ad edit. So I would expect in the next version of Matrix, either be 4th quarter or early next year, that there'll be some better photo editing capabilities. I mean, our HAR technology department has developed an app, and it's the HAR Media Manager, and it allows you to upload photos directly into Matrix as well. And quite honestly, I think it's a little bit better than the Matrix input module, because you can move images, you can see the descriptions as you're adding those photos as well. So I hear what you're saying. The photo editing capabilities in Matrix are certainly limiting and not their best feature. And they definitely need improvement. And I know we've spoken to CoreLogic about it, and I know they're working on that.
Okay, very good. And if this isn't proof that Our staff is working round the clock, Nathan, to improve things. Nathan just updated some code in Matrix based on a question that he received. So thank you, Nathan, for that. Just a comment here from Melissa. Thank you so much for all you do. So much information and the tools we receive to better serve our clients and build our businesses. We really do have the best MLS anywhere. So thank you, Melissa. All right, Shawn, well, is there anything else that you want to share with our members today?
I want to thank all of our members because, HAR can only improve when we get the feedback from our members. And so, that's why we're here. We're here to serve our members, and we appreciate the feedback, and we want to make it better for our members. So just keep that feedback coming, and I think that's all I have.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shawn, again, for taking the time to join me this morning. And thank you to all of our members for tuning in. We will be back next Monday at 9 a.m. with another show for you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.